So one of the most fun things you can do when you go camping is take a day hike, go exploring. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you some tips on how to do it safely. Stay tuned. So going and exploring, taking a day hike, finding out what's around the next bend, it's human nature, and it's what makes camping and hiking so much fun, is that discovery. Now we want to do it safely. So in today's video, I'm going to be making some recommendations on some things that you can do to help make your next day hike or exploration that much safer. Today's video, we're going to divide it into 3 parts. First, we're going to take what you need to know before you go. The second section will be on what do you take. And the third section will be, once you're on your day hike, what are things that you can do to help make your experience that much better and that much safer? So let's get started. Hi, if we haven't met yet, I'm John with Let's Go Now Adventures. And our channel, our YouTube channel, is about all things camping. You know, whether you're a tent camper or an RV camper, we make videos that help you have a better camping experience. So let's get started with today's topic. You know, I consider day hikes falling into 2 categories. There's the planned day hike. You know days in advance that you're going to be going and you're going to be doing a certain hike. There's the other kind, which is kind of spontaneous, where you're camping and you look at that pass, or you look and see that lake and you think, what's on the other side of it? Let's go take a look. You know what? In both circumstances, you need to do a couple of things before you go. Now, I don't think this takes away the spontaneity from any of it. It just is smart. And it's going to make, the more we know before we go, the better experience we'll have and the safer experience we'll have. So what should we find out before we go on a day hike? Well, we ought to take a look at the topography and the climate of the area that we're in. For example, if you're in a mountainous area or if you're hiking in the desert, those are 2 completely different situations. Are you at altitude? Are you at 9,000 feet or are you at sea level? Those can be some differences on how you plan your hike and things that you should take. Another is, how warm or how cold is it going to be in the next 24 hours? That's kind of important, so you can prepare what you take with you based on the temperature. It's important to know the flora and fauna of the area. That means that, you know, the plants or the animals, and especially the ones that may be harmful to you. In my area, for example, stinging nettle and rattlesnakes right now are the 2 things I should be watching out for when I go on a day hike. You want to know kind of what your route is, where are you going to go, and the way to do that would be by looking at a map, getting recommendation from a ranger, or using a hiking app that gives you a little bit of guidance. You want to know before you take off, at least generally, where you're heading. That'll do 2 things. It'll give you an idea of how long you're going to be out, how much you need to take, and is everybody in your group up for the task? Another thing to consider before you go is find out, is there going to be water along the way on your route? Will there be any streams that you cross, or will there any lakes at your destination? It's kind of important to know that you might be able to resupply water along the way. Last thing to consider is to know your limits. Before you go on any day hike, take a look and say, how long has it been since you've been on a hike? You know, your Fitbit may have said that you're walking 2 to 3 miles a day. It doesn't necessarily translate into a 3-mile hike that gains 3,000 feet in elevation. That's a different animal. So know your limits, and also know the limits of the people in your party so that you can help make adjustments and make decisions based on what the limits of everybody in your group are. Now, it's important to know all of these things because we're going to take all of that knowledge and think about it before we decide on part 2 of our discussion today, is what we should take. So now that we've figured out and done a little bit of research about where we're going to go, that helps us make a decision on what we're going to take. You know, for example, if you were going to go out for an hour and walk on the boardwalk around the lake that's right there, That's one thing. Or if you were going to take a 3-mile hike, on the other hand, or a 5-mile hike that changes in elevation by several thousand feet, those could be different things, and it will make a difference on what we choose to take. So take into consideration how long you're going to be gone, the difficulty of your hike, and you'll also want to think about how far from your base camp or your car or your campsite you're going to be, because that'll help make a decision on what or how much of what I'm about to present you'll take to make sure you're safe. But before we go any further, the most important thing you can do before you start packing up for your day hike is let somebody else know where you're going and when you expect to return. So let's move on. These items I'm about to present are things that you should think about taking every single time. So one of the things we want to ask ourselves before we start packing for this trip is we know how long we're going to be gone. We know about generally where we're heading. I want to ask you, and you should ask yourself, what if something goes wrong? What if somebody gets injured? What if we get lost? What if we had to spend the night? Use the worst case scenario to make sure you're packing and prepared when you go on your day hike. So my recommendation is the following 10 to 12 items. The first, take a knife, whether it's a fixed blade knife or a pocket knife. These can be the most useful tools that you'll have with you on your hike. Second is a compass and a map. Those help you keep track of where you are, how far you're out, and if you do get lost, they'll be your key to coming back. Now with a compass and a map, it's important that you know how to use them. So there are plenty of YouTube videos out there. Just take a basic course on land navigation and you'll be so much better off for it. Take some illumination. You'll be thinking, I'm going on a day hike. Why do I need some sort of light, whether it be a flashlight or a headlamp? My preference, by the way, is a headlamp. That keeps my hands free. Is what if you end up coming back and it takes a little longer, you get lost for a while, and you have to hike back in the dark. Hiking back in the dark without some sort of light is so difficult, and having some light will make it that much easier for you. Or what if you had to spend the night? Having some light will help so much. Having some sort of sunscreen and sun protection is the next thing. Make sure you do, before you go, get some sunscreen on, have some glasses, and wear a hat to help protect you from the UV radiation. One of the most important things you can take on your hike, and probably the most important thing I'm going to mention today, is water. Making sure you stay hydrated on your day hike is the most important thing you can do. Make sure you have enough water. My guess is that if you're thinking about it and you're planning on how much water to take, you'll underestimate how much water you're going to need. Water's heavy, so there's a tendency to not take as much as you're going to need. Trust me, make sure you have enough water for yourself and for your group. The advantage with water is you're going to consume it over the course of your hike. That makes it lighter and lighter and lighter. But when you get out there, after, say, your first mile, you'll be so glad you took all that water you did. One of the other things we did is in the know before you go phase, we discovered if there was going to be water sources along the way, a stream or a lake. Well, if that's the case, then we should have some water purification tablets, or maybe even a life straw. These things can be lifesavers. But knowing that there's a stream or a lake along the way and having this with you really can make the difference. When you go on a day hike, you probably don't realize how many calories you can burn. On a 3-5 mile hike, well, actually any hike for that matter. So it's important to have some nutrition. Whether it be some protein bar, some jerky, trail mix, something you should have and you should always take with you. Remember, the most important thing if it's a day hike is just making sure you have enough calories with you. Another thing you may want to consider is having some sort of repair kit. This is a a multi-purpose knife, you know, think Leatherman. This is a DeWalt. It doesn't really matter as long as you've got all those different tools at your disposal. And then what I've got here, this looks like a mess, but it's not. This is 6 feet of duct tape, and wrapped up in this 6 feet of duct tape is a spool of thread, a needle, some safety pins, and some straight pins that will allow me, along with this, to repair anything that I need when I'm out. Can you imagine if you're out and the sole of your shoe becomes separated from the upper, how much more difficult that would be to walk down coming out of your hike? Well, if you have a little bit of duct tape, you just duct tape that up together and you're good to go. Some other things you might want to think about along those same lines is you want to make sure you have some insulation. You want to make sure that you take something like a poncho that you can use if it does rain. You know, if you've watched many of my videos, the secret to staying warm is staying dry. And so just a simple plastic poncho is really all you need. It folds up into something like this and weighs about 1 ounce. It really will make a difference if it starts to rain. The other thing is you may want to take a sweater or a light jacket. Once again, it'll be a lot different, the temperature in the day versus the temperature in the night. Along those same lines, when you're considering, think about shelter. This is an emergency blanket. These things are awesome. They're cheap, but they can save your life. They keep you warm when it gets cooler. They can also serve to a good shelter if you want. Combine that with a little bit of paracord and you'll be good to go. Along with the idea of taking some insulation is you may be out there all night, so take something to be able to start a fire. Whether you've got some matches in a waterproof container, a lighter, I always carry a lighter, or a flint and steel. Knowing how to use this is important. But being able to create a fire if you have to spend the night can be something to make your experience at least semi-comfortable and much more enjoyable. It could even save your life. So I talked about water being one of the most important things you don't leave home without. The other thing that's probably right up there that I recommend no matter what kind of day hike, no matter how short or how long, is that you have a first aid kit. I've got a couple of first aid kits here. This is kind of the bare minimum that you need. It's got a couple of different size bandages in there, some wipes, but maybe something a little bit more comprehensive with more types of bandages, some antibiotic lotion, and some tweezers, safety pins will come in handy. You can pick up little ones like this that each person carries. But if not, you could piece together your own. Just make sure you include some antibiotic lotion that'll help if you get scraped up on the trail. One thing I do recommend though, because you're going exploring and you're going to be hiking, is have some moleskin. Having moleskin will help to prevent anybody in your party from getting blisters, or if they do get blisters, the ability to walk back by using moleskin. Make sure you do include this. Most first aid kits don't have this as part of the basic package. You'll probably have to pick this up separate. Couple other suggestions that you may want to consider. How about a walkie-talkie? So you can keep in touch with the other parties if you get separated. Toilet paper rolled up in a Ziploc bag. Now, sometimes you need to go when you're out there. If you do, this can come in really handy. What you do is you dig your cat hole 200 feet away from the water and at least 6 to 8 inches deep. And you do your business out there, and then you have your toilet paper rolled up. Do not leave the toilet paper out. The reason for the plastic bag is take your used toilet paper, put it in the plastic bag, seal it back up, and make sure you take it out with you and leave no trace. And this may be one of the most important, is this is so little, it's a whistle. And the ability to whistle if you get into distress, if there's an injury or you're lost, you can whistle so much louder than you can yell or scream. Two of the other items that really could come in handy are a cell phone. You know, there are a lot of cell phones out there that have functioning compasses and GPS, even when there's no cell service. The other thing is, with your cell phone, you've got a camera built in, so you can record those moments. That's the last thing I always take, is make sure you take a camera with you. You know, you're going out, you're exploring, you're doing all that work, you're going to these wonderful places. Make sure you record those moments. You'll appreciate it when you get back and you can look back on the photos. Now, how do we carry all this stuff? Almost everything that I mentioned will fit in a little pack like this, but I prefer a day pack like this one. This will not only allow me to take all the essentials, but then I can take some extra things like my camera. Now, this next list of items is things you can do while you're on your adventure to make it more enjoyable and safe. The first is the talk test. You don't want to set your pace on your adventure faster than everybody can continue to have a conversation. Use the talk test to decide if you're going too fast. The second is look up. There's a tendency when you're hiking, especially if it's a strenuous hike, to look down and focus on your footfalls. Well, the important thing to do is look up. Notice the beauty that's around you. The other thing is keep track of those landmarks, like that big mountain right over there. You're aware of where that is. That big mountain, that landmark, could really come in handy to help guide you back. So the next thing is, if you don't have a life straw, if you don't have water purification tablets, and you've run out of water, you're out hiking and you or one of your party shows signs of severe dehydration or heat-induced illness, go ahead and drink from the stream. The reason is based on research from my university, which is the University of Utah. Here's the logic. If you drink from the stream and you pick up a waterborne illness like Giardia, those symptoms won't be expressed, or you won't start to feel that diarrhea or nausea for a week. By then you'll be back off your hike and you'll be near medical care that can work with those symptoms. If you've got severe dehydration or heat illness, you could die that day. So it's much more important. Don't be worried about the Giardia. Go ahead, when you don't have any other way to do it, drink from the stream. Okay, another important thing is use all of your senses when you're out. It's beautiful out there. Like I mentioned before, look up, notice things, notice the trees, notice the sun. What side of your body? Is it on your left shoulder or your right shoulder? Notice that big mountain over there, because it will change as you walk around it. It's important to see things. Listen. You know, by listening and taking those earbuds out, you may hear a stream right over there that you can't see. Note which way is the wind coming from. Is it blowing across you? Is it blowing towards you? It'll help you if you get lost, and you'll note those sorts of things. Be aware of those senses. It may help you, but at the very least, you'll have a much more enjoyable experience. So take a minute and take breaks. It'll give you a chance to make sure everybody in your party takes a drink, get something to eat, to stay hydrated and make sure you have enough nutrition. It'll also give you a chance to talk and make sure between yourselves if we're pushing too hard, or if maybe we should turn back, we've reached somebody's limit. Taking breaks is a good idea. Now, this last one is something that a lot of people don't think about. When you're hiking up to a destination, or you may not even have a destination, but you're generally heading that way, stop, turn around, and look back. And take a mental note of what the return trip's going to look like. You know what's even better than that? Turn around and take a photo of what you're going to be expecting when you're coming back down. You may not even be aware that a trail just merged. If you notice that a trail merged with the one you're on, turn around, take a look, take a photo, note which side you came up. The reason is when you're coming back down, things will look a little bit different. And you know, even more important, let's say you've had too much fun and you're coming back down and it's dark, things will really look different. You'll appreciate the fact that you took a photo of the route back down so that when you come to the fork in the road, you'll know which way to go. The last one is divide the weight. You know, not everybody needs to carry the first aid kits. Now, if you're going to do this, the important thing is you stay together. So, for example, when Holly and I go on an adventure, we may take a walk, she'll carry the first aid kit and the repair kit and things like that. We'll each carry water, but I may carry the camera gear while she carries the other items. So divide the weight, but it's important to remember, when you do that, stay together. In today's video, we've talked about 3 things. Know before you go. Based on that, what items should we take? And third, what should we do to make our experience better while we're out on our adventure? So, by no means did I cover everything and exhaust everything you should think about or take on your adventure. I'm sure that a lot of you have great tips that I didn't mention, and I'd love to have you share those with us by leaving something in the comments section down below. You know what would even be better is join our Facebook group. It's called Adventures Campfire Connection, where we have dialogue back and forth between people who love camping. If you got some value out of today's video, give us a big thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to our channel. Hit the little button down there and the bell that's right next to it, so you're notified when we release other camping videos. I'm John with Let's Go Now Adventures, and we'll see you on the next adventure.